Welcome. I am Dr. Mark Berkler, and I would like to ask you a question. When you hear a story or read a story, um, here's the question. When is the stated story not the whole story? Question, when is the stated story not the whole story? And the answer is almost always, or probably more correctly, it's always not the stated story. And that's really important for me to come to grips with, whether it's a pastor sharing a story or a person sharing a testimony of healing or whatever, um, or even the Bible recording a story, because we assume, well, that's the whole story. No, no, it's not. And I want to illustrate that for you, because if it's not the whole story, then I probably don't need to spend any time judging anything about the story because I'm starting out with the assumption this is not the whole story. What I heard was very interesting, but there's more to it than that. All right. So to prove this point, the whole story is not the whole story. How about we're going to take the four gospel writers as they describe what happened the last 6 hours of Jesus's life. And they put these 6 hours under a microscope because they've just been covering 33 years of his life really, 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 really fast. They might give a couple chapters to a whole year of his life, 2 or 3 or 4 chapters, and they got a whole 365 days there. Now we got 6 hours and mega, 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 mega chapters on these 6 hours. So we fine-tuned this to give you more detail. So does any one of the four give us all the details as to what happened in those 6 hours? And the answer is no. Let's start because there's 29 details total in the four Gospels concerning these 6 hours. Out of those 29, we'll start with Mark because he tells us 15, almost about half of them, and then we'll go on to the other three Gospels. So Mark says, Mark chapter 15, verses 21 to 41, Simon of Cyrene bore Jesus's cross to Golgotha. That's a detail. Jesus would not take any wine mixed with myrrh. Okay. Lots were cast for his garments. Number 4, he was crucified in the third hour. Number 5, the inscription over his head was the King of the Jews. Number 6, 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on his right, one on his left. Number 7, people passing by were hurling abuse at him, wagging their heads and saying, wow, he was going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Save yourself and come down from the cross. Number 8, chief priests and scribes were mocking him. Number 9, those who were crucified with him were also insulting him. Number 10, when the 6th hour came, darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. Number 11, at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, which translated was, my God, why have you forsaken me? Number 12, people said, well, let's just see if Elijah might come and take him down. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. Number 13, and the veil of the temple was torn from top to bottom. Number 14, when the centurion who was standing at his right in front of him saw the way he breathed his last, he said, truly, this man was a son of God. And number 15, the women were looking from a distance. 15 details about those 6 hours. Maybe that's the whole story. Maybe not. So Matthew 27, starting with verse 32 to 52, he adds this. The earth shook and the rocks were split. Number 2, the tombs were opened and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. Number 3, and coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. Whoa, 3 more things, very big things, actually. All right, how about if we go on to Luke chapter 23, verses 32 to 49? 5 more things happened that have not been recorded yet. But Jesus was saying, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. But the other criminal was rebuking him, saying, don't you even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we receiving what we deserve for our deeds, but he's done nothing wrong. Number 3, and he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And he said to him, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Number 4, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Number 5, all the crowds came together for this spectacle. When they observed what had happened, they began to return, beating their breast. Well, 5 more details not mentioned before. And now John, he's still got 6 more things. We're up to 23 things so far. We still have 6 more points that have not been mentioned in the story. So in John chapter 19, verses 16 to 37, he tells them to us. Jesus went out bearing his own cross. Okay, so we started bearing his own cross when he fell, then someone else came to bear it the rest of the way for him. Number 2, many of the Jews had read this inscription, for the place Jesus was crucified was near the city. It was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, and the chief priests and the Jews were saying to Pilate, do not write, he's the king of the Jews, but write that he said, I'm the king of the Jews. And Pilate said, look, what I have written, I have written. Just go away. Number 3, then the soldiers, when they crucified Jesus, took his outer garments, made 4 parts, a part for each soldier, also the tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece, and they said to one another, let us not tear it, let's cast lots for it, decide whose it shall be. Number 4, when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. He said to the disciple, behold your mother. Number 5, Jesus said, I'm thirsty. And a jar full of sour wine was standing there. So they put a sponge full of sour wine upon a branch of hyssop, and they brought it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. He bowed his head. He gave up his spirit. And number 6, our final point. Then the Jews, because it was a day of preparation, so that bodies would not remain on the cross over the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day, they asked Pilate that their legs might be broken, that they might be taken away. So the soldiers came, broke the legs of the first man and of the other who was crucified with him. But coming to Jesus, when they saw he was already dead, they did not break his legs. One of the soldiers pierced him in the side with a spear. Immediately blood and water came out. 29 points compiled together by 4 different writers. And you say, wow, okay, so maybe I got the whole story now, right? Probably not, because here's what John says in John 21, verse 25. He said, and there are also many other things which Jesus did. And if they were written in detail, I suppose that not even the world itself could contain the books that would be written. So John is saying, look, we haven't begun to cover all the detail in Jesus's 33 years here. So when is the story not the full story? I think we can safely assume that probably all the time, the story that I'm telling you or the story that you're telling me, it's a part of the story. And so what would be some of the reasons why we don't get all the details when somebody tells a story? Well, I'm just going to give you 7 possible reasons. 1, there may be lack of time. You just don't have time to tell you the whole story. Number 2, maybe I don't know all the events. Maybe I just know some of the events. Number 3, I could have the events discolored through emotions. For example, maybe fear or greed might cause me or you or someone to just tell part of the story and not tell the other parts that they don't feel builds their point. Okay. Number 4, people sometimes just tell the part that they feel that's important. So, when I was praying for healing, Jesus, you know, I went to the altar and, instantaneously I was healed, that's and that's great. Okay, it's really great. And so I want to tell that part of the story. And number 5, only telling the part that you feel glorifies God. So I'm not want to tell you the rest of it, that I had been in disobedience to God for a number of months, and he'd really convicted me that morning and said, look, if you'll lay down this sin, I will heal you. Well, I didn't mention that maybe, okay? Maybe I was doing several things he was asking me to do. Like he was saying, look, I want you to get up and exercise, and I want you to eat a right diet, and I want you to forgive these people that you hate because it's wrecking your immune system. And so you had done all that, and then when you got to the altar, healing power could be released. And that's all part of the story, but maybe you don't feel that glorifies God, or maybe you don't feel you have the time to share it all. So the listener doesn't hear the whole story and thinks, wow, I can just go to the altar and just get healed supernaturally. just like Joe did. Well, maybe there was a whole lot more things that Joe did, other in addition to going to the altar. And sometimes I guess people could be just outright dishonest. I think when I read the newspaper article or anything like that, I don't get the newspaper, but online stuff, there's just so much outright dishonesty. They're just lying because they've got an agenda that they're pushing. All right. And there's money in it for them if they push the agenda. All right. And then finally, the Bible, number 7, the Bible does say we see through a glass darkly. Okay. So Bible's very clear that we don't have full discernment at this point in time. So there's a lot of reasons why the whole story is not the whole story. Okay. So how about if you journal and say, Lord, what do you want to speak to me about the way that I receive, handle, and judge based on the stories that I read and I hear? So, Lord, what do you want to speak to me about the way that I receive, handle, and judge based on the stories I read and hear? And journal about it. Let him speak to you. Lord has told me over and over, Mark, cool the judging. You don't need to judge most stuff, just let it go. And so I have learned to do that over the years. All right. So when's the story, not the whole story? Probably every single time. All right. God bless you. Hope this has been beneficial and inspirational. All right. This is Mark Brickler signing off.